Hello, everyone. Dave Fernandez here. Welcome to another episode of the Coach Your Way show. This is episode number 9 of our interview series, What It Takes to Be a Coach. And today we have somebody super special coming from Granby, Connecticut, Kristal Fiorentino. How you doing, Kristal?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for accepting my invitation to come to the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Kristal is a life coach who specializes in yoga therapy. Can you tell us what that means?
A lot of people think yoga therapy just means that I prescribe a certain number of down dogs or child's pose. It's not actually what it means. We do use sometimes child's pose and down dogs, but mostly we're trained in order to work with the principles of yoga, Eastern philosophy, meditation, affirmation, nidras, and poses sometimes to work with specific conditions. So I specialize in mental, emotional conditions. And so I work using the yoga therapy principles with that in my practice of the coaching and therapy. I found that when I was just doing yoga therapy, we were looking at more body, less mind. And when I was coaching, I was looking at more mind, less body. Yeah. And so I ended up, after I would say 3 or 4 years of doing that, kind of combined it into my own system where it is body mind by using both of the principles. And so that seems to be working really, really well for my clients.
That's awesome. You know, yoga, I've been a practitioner on and off, a bunch of years, and it definitely has transformed my life. And I'm sure you've seen the same thing, happening, in your life and the life of your clients, right? Like, because it affects everything, right? Everything from your mind to your body, your energies, your health, primarily.
Everything. We, as yoga therapists, we believe that, and this started, I think, 6th century BC, the idea that we are 5 layers of the body. We call them koshas. And yeah, so we're so much more than what we're thinking, or we're so much more than what we're feeling. There are so many different levels. And the great thing about yoga is it works on all of those levels. And a lot of people get into it for the stretch, or the flexibility. I mean, I found it by accident. We were talking about that.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, you find that it starts working in all these other ways that you hadn't anticipated. Yeah. And I think that's what makes it such an amazing therapeutic intervention that's had the staying power of centuries.
For sure. Tell me, when did you actually experience for the first time the call to coach or serve others?
Experiencing the call to coach was around 7 years ago. I've been doing yoga and working as a teacher one-on-one for about 17 years, but adding coaching to my practice, I found I had been doing it for the last 17 years. I just didn't know it had a name. And about, I would say 7 years ago, I found that what I was actually doing in my one-to-one practice and my workshops was coaching. And so I went back and got a certification and found all the names of the things that we sort of do intuitively, and really honed my practice then. So I would say coaching really became a component of my system about 7 years ago. But the call, I think you're born with a call. I think it's part of what we call dharma, right?
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how long it takes you to answer the call.
Interesting. Yeah. I think you're right about that. You got to be ready for it, right? At some point,
well, you can avoid it for so long. I avoided it through so many different ways until I finally had to just stop avoiding.
When you got certified, tell me a little bit about the process, what it was like for you and what it did for you.
So the yoga therapy is a different certification than the coaching certification. I had done my yoga therapy certification and had wanted to really figure out kind of how people, and I think this is in a lot of different certifications, they certify you to be able to do a certain thing, but they don't certify you and teach you how to actually go about in the world and then make money doing that certain thing.
Interesting.
So I became a newly certified yoga therapist with no way or, opportunity or education on how to make money. So I ended up finding a coaching program that not only taught me the business behind how do I put myself in the world, it also, and it combined it with a coaching degree. So I actually found a program that did both, and it took 14 months.
Okay. What was the name of the academy or the institute?
It was called the Divine Living Academy. Gina DeVee was
Okay.
the coach at the time. Yep. And so she has a program where you can take the business aspect of it, and then if you want to add the coaching certification on, you can. And I did initially, is when I was doing this work, I thought it was important to learn, like I said, the technicality of what I had actually been doing. But it was really good also to have some sort of structure and container around that. Because I think that once we learn something and start teaching it, I think we then become a coach. But the coaching industry is becoming so amazingly big with so many talented coaches. For me, I wanted to make sure that I had kind of a structure around that. So I went through that, and there's a lot of apprenticeship involved with it. And, there's a lot of book and homework work to do too, and watching videos. But then there's also the apprenticeship where we actually had to get the clientele and, submit coaching tapes and get feedback. And yeah.
Interesting. And I would assume that obviously you were being coached, through the entire program, right? And outside of that program, have you ever been coached?
Outside of that program, I don't think I would ever go without a coach ever again. A coach has really, and anybody that's had any sort of mentor, we need to be challenged, right? I think we're at our best when we're being challenged. And so I have found through the period of my work, when I don't have a coach, I coast. And there's a time for coasting. Like, we all need time to draw a breath. So now that I'm kind of in the throes of my work and really busy, I go like every other year, where I'll go hard and get a coach to really push me out of my comfort zone. And then I'll coast for that year, implementing whatever I've learned. But I've absolutely have had a coach on and off for the last 7 years. It's also been the time of my greatest transformation. So, and I think there's a correlation? 100%.
For sure. Now that we're getting into the challenges of, being a coach, what do you think are the main challenges that, someone who's starting out, right? They don't know anything about coaching and they're just looking to learn and to see what it's like, to be a coach. What are some of the things that they can expect, to experience as part of the journey?
I think that the hardest thing to do when you're becoming a coach is realizing that you are your own best enemy. And that is that we are programmed, and we learn this, in coaching. We're programmed, I call it a thermostat, where we're set to feel kind of what we consider normal. And when we go out of those bounds, it gets very, very uncomfortable. And so normally we don't. But when you are being a coach or coming into kind of this coaching industry and getting that going, you have to start dealing and pushing those boundaries of what you thought was possible. I think we get imposter syndrome or fraud complex, like, who am I to be teaching this? And so I think it's really important that you stay grounded in your own work and self-development as you go and start helping others, because your clients are a mirror for what you need to be working on. And so, the thing about coaching is that there are two things going on always, right? So we're helping our clients, but then it's also whatever they're experiencing or we're experiencing and helping them is kind of a mirror for what we're doing. So we're constantly, helping, but then kind of doing our own work at the same time. And I think that's the hardest thing to realize, is that that's going to happen. And so if you just maybe add it to the equation, and know that it's part of the agreement or the ingredient to successful coaching, I think you're way ahead of the game. Nobody told me that, and I wish they would have.
Yeah, I hear you about that one. Man, do you learn, when you coach, if you're open to it, right? And, you start seeing your own limitations as well.
Which there's such a beauty in that. I was just saying to my coach the other day that I feel like such a student again. And it has really opened me up to doing such better work for my clients, not assuming that I know everything, right? So it's okay to be the teacher, and we do need to be the teacher, but we also need to practice being a student at the same time. And we think that it's an either or, but once we can actually hold the space for ourselves to be both, I think that's where we become exponentially better. And then when we become better, we become in better service.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Tell me, again, on the challenge side of things, when you are enrolling a new client, you're working with a new person, you're discovering a number of things, about them, about what they need, what they truly need, not necessarily what they want, but what they truly need, right? We were talking about that before. What are some of those challenges that you experience with a new client?
I think and I don't know if anybody else has this, but for me, it's being very, very honest with them. If I can help them with the transformation that they're looking for, and being able to speak that in a confident way, knowing if you can or can't help them. So when I first became a coach, I took every client, right? We're building and we're learning, and you're just grateful to have clients. And what I found was I'm not meant to work with every single client, right? And so really owning what I could actually give in a transformation was really important. And it made all the difference when I realized that I didn't have to take everybody that I sat down with to interview. So when I do sit down with a client or a prospective client, I began interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me. And obviously in a way that's helpful, that I'm always in service, but knowing that I don't have to take this on if I don't feel that I'm the best fit for this client. And I think that was a challenge to get in my head, that I didn't have to take every single client. The fascinating thing about this is once you realize that, that's when the clientele that you want, your ideal clientele, starts to come to you. So I feel like the universe throws us so many ironies that once we figure this out, then the right ones come and you are taking all the clients. But you had to figure that out first. It's like these little pop quizzes along the way.
Sure. I think it works for everything. First of all, I'm guilty of that too. Taking on any client that comes my way, or any potential prospect or whatever. But again, just like we were saying before, it's part of the journey. Just like you're describing right now, you have to go through that in order to realize whatever it is that you need to realize to take it to the next level. And then at that level, there's another quiz. And then once you realize that, then you're allowed to go to third grade and their fourth grade and fifth grade, right? And it's just a matter of realization and letting go. I think, I don't know if you agree with that.
And being a student of the process, I remember 1 year, I did 20 discovery sessions without bringing on a client. And I thought, why am I trying? At first it was like the problem was the clients, right? So at first I'm like, I'm not, these are not the clients I could work with, or they thought I was too expensive, or, there was always something. And I had never had 20 prospective calls and not signed a client. And once I sat back and I thought, maybe this isn't about them. The common denominator in 20 meetings was me.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
The clients were all different. The common denominator was me. So once I sat with that, it became easy peasy. Like once you figure out, I was the one that was deflecting all of that. That was my issue. And once I was able to work through whatever belief system that was, I'm pretty sure it was about money at the time, that maybe my program wasn't worth what I was asking for it. And once I worked through that personal situation and money belief system, I had 100% sign ratio. And I was bringing in the clientele that I wanted to work with. And I didn't need to do 20. I needed to do 5 at the time, right? To fill the 5 spots I had. So when we do start to see patterns, it's so important to really look within, because first of all, that's what we're teaching, right? And that's what we need to learn.
For sure. Incredible. I had a similar experience. I wish I had that awareness at that moment, but I didn't. But I was following a certain system, if you will. And one clear thing about the system was to talk about money, right? Which is something that I guess we all have to, deal with. And I remember one of the things about the system is, you charge whatever you want to charge and you stick to your guns, right? And what I learned, and I want everybody to hear this, is that, you know what? It's okay to be flexible. But I was being too rigid, and I probably lost a lot of business because I would not budge. I was trying to be faithful with this one system. I'm not saying it was the right system or the wrong system. It's just a system that wasn't working for me. And like you said before, the common denominator was me, right? And I love that. I actually wrote it down here. And but what I realized is that, it was okay to be flexible. It was okay to negotiate. It was okay to meet the client to a certain degree, right? You're not going to go, okay, I'll do it for free. It's not like that, but, not everybody has the resources to, pay for a 6 months program or a year program, right? Let's be clear about that. Not everybody, even if they have the money, mean that they should be going through the program or being coached, because they may not be ready, or they may not be the right fit, like you were saying a minute ago. But if somebody is the right fit and they just need a little bit of help, it's okay to be flexible.
I think what we need to remember is that money is currency and currency is energy. And so it just needs to be reciprocated in a way that feels good for both participants. And it's why it's really, really important to know yourself anytime that you're talking about money. When I first moved to Granby, Connecticut, I was just doing yoga at the time, and people really weren't doing yoga in this small rural farm, and they certainly weren't doing it in private. They didn't understand the benefit of having a therapeutic practice. And so I was charging $30 an hour. And actually, if I was honest, it was $30 for 2 hours, because I was actually going into their homes. I was driving there and I was driving back. Now I charge $300 an hour, and they come to me. Right. And the point being is that you get to choose that. And you have to be okay energetically with what it's feeling. At the time of me charging $30 an hour, I was okay with that. There was nothing wrong with that. People might have said that was ridiculous, but I was working through my own belief systems at the time when we moved here. And in fact, I said it. People aren't used to paying that in New England, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I raised my rates to what they are now, I've gotten a lot of pushback, which is, that's not what the market will bear. Well, that's not true either. Depending on what we are giving somebody energetically, that's how we start to decide the currency that we're going to request, because it needs to be reciprocated. So
Mm-hmm.
it's never about the number,
Mm-hmm.
never about the number.
Mm-hmm.
It's about how you feel about the energy reciprocation
For sure.
in the deal you're making, right?
For sure. For
And
sure.
you get to decide.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of clients at no cost.
Yeah.
That's part of my SEVA, right? Or my SEVA, how we would say it. But, on the flip side, I can do that because I charge a different rate in my life coaching work.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my point is that you're right. We do need to be a little bit more flexible, but not necessarily flexible in money, but maybe flexible in understanding the energy reciprocation of what that may look like.
Mm-hmm. For
It's
sure.
just worth considering.
And by the way, just to clarify for anyone also listening, that what I mean also by being more flexible, it doesn't necessarily has to be reducing your rates necessarily,
Right.
but getting creative on how you are going to deliver your services, right? And just to give a quick example for new people, you may have a certain rate for 4 calls a month, right? Once a week or whatnot. And, if that's a problem, then you can reduce that to 3 calls or 2 calls, once every other week or whatnot. You could go to 1 call a month, if you need it, to do that. And that's okay. That's what I mean also by being flexible, just to clarify.
Absolutely. And I would say, can I add something, David, about
Please.
when we start charging? I think one of the biggest lessons I learned was know what you're providing as far as transformation, and know what it's going to take to get that transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So I found, just as an example, yoga therapy, there were yoga therapists out there that were charging, whatever they were charging per hour, right? And you could buy 1 session, or you could buy 2 sessions or 3 sessions. You could buy them in package like you buy yoga classes in package, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I started finding was that people then were doing 1 or 2 sessions and felt amazing,
Mm-hmm.
but then there was no change. There was no transformation. You felt amazing at the time, but that's 2 sessions or 2 hours is not enough time to make a real difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so figuring out what you as a coach, the time you need, the work that I do cannot be done less than 3 months at a time. That's just the work I do. And maybe there are people who can do the work I do and do it in 3 days or 3 weeks, but it's not me. And so I had to figure out, what transformation did I want to provide, and what type of time container that I could provide that in. And then that's how you kind of figure out where you're going to go for pricing. But know what you're offering, and make sure to own in your discovery sessions how long that's going to take, because we're not only doing the client a disservice by not being realistic with the time constraints, but we're doing the industry a disservice, I think, by not really giving people the transformation that they're looking for, and being honest about, change takes time.
For sure. That's an excellent point. Understanding what it's going to take, and actually, being honest about it. Because, if we are honest about this stuff, we've been, I'm only going to speak for myself, but I have been working on this for 15 years plus, or maybe more, right? My own self-development, and I still think that I have a lot to go, right? So it's not realistic to tell someone that, they're going to have this change in 4 sessions or 5 sessions, when in reality, this is a lifelong journey, like it's going to, it's not realistic. That let's leave it at that.
Right. And we do a disservice by acting like it is realistic,
Yeah.
or wanting to get the client. And so saying, well, I can do 5 sessions, when after 5 sessions, they're not really getting what they were hoping for. And then thinking that coaching, or let's just use my example, yoga therapy doesn't work. Well, it's not that yoga therapy doesn't work. It's that we just didn't give it the time and the container that it needed in order to make those changes.
That's cool.
A lot of the belief systems that we're working through, or the conditions that I deal with in my practice that we're working through, took decades to create.
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous to think, or unrealistic at best, to think that that can be fixed in 5 sessions.
Yeah. So. No, it's a great point. Tell me something, Kristal. What were you doing prior to being a coach? What's your background?
My background was in health insurance.
Okay.
I was in health insurance. I loved it. And then I had 2 children that they were just children, but it was hard for me to kind of make that switch to a stay-at-home mom. But I did that for years. So, and it's funny, that's how I actually found yoga, was trying to figure out how to deal with being a stay-at-home mom. When, everybody said that's like the greatest calling. And I was really suffering under that calling because I didn't feel like I was doing it right. And so I actually found yoga at the time to sort of help me through that. But yeah, I would say, and I dabbled in yoga. I dabbled in yoga and coaching before making it a serious career until 7 years ago. So I would say for about 10 years, I dabbled in doing this work privately, with people I knew or people that would seek me out. But I think, what was I doing before? I was always thinking a little bit differently. And when we're little, what I found is that made me kind of weird. But it's actually been my strength, or my superpower now. It just was owning the superpower that took forever.
It took a long time for me as well, just to remove a lot of the, self-doubt and the imposter syndrome, primarily.
The imposter syndrome,
That's all it was. Do you think that people, just like you said, need to be thinking differently in order to get into coaching? What's a good background to have in order to go into coaching? Do they need a specific background, to be a good coach?
That's interesting. It's an interesting question. I would say some things are learned, but I would find that most coaches would be considered empaths, if we were to use that word, meaning that we can just feel a little bit more, and we use more than 5 senses. And I think that's inherent from the day we're born. I think everybody has that ability, but there are some that have that maybe more than others. I mean, I do believe, we're kind of all dealt kind of the same hand, but it's like, what are we going to improve upon, or what are we going to exercise and really strengthen? I think listening skills also are so important in coaching. That was one of the qualities that I learned about myself and didn't know there was a name for it until I took the coaching certification, and really understanding what active listening is. So I think that's really important. As far as a background, you have to be open, really, really open to different ideas. And I think that's all the necessary requirements. And then everything else can be strengthened or honed, right? Or learned. But our inherent openness to others and to other ideas, I think, is a requirement to do this work.
So do you think that anyone could become a coach?
Anyone that's open to other ideas could become a coach. I don't know that there's, not everybody is open, but I believe we're all born open.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we've been born into a human experience. So early on, we are taught through these experiences, we get perceptions,
Yeah.
and those perceptions harden into beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, which harden into personality,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, in the beginning, anybody could be a coach,
Mm-hmm.
but based on the experiences of what kind of your human experiences brought you, will necessitate how many of those belief systems you have to work through before you actually, you know, take this on. You know, but we all have wisdom to impart,
Mm-hmm.
and we all don't have to profit by it, right? So I think that there's a lot of parents out there that are great coaches,
Mm-hmm.
but they're doing something else,
Beautiful, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so not everything that we are really good at do we have to profit from.
Yeah.
But there are some that feel called to do it as a job,
Mm-hmm.
right? And those are who we call coaches. But I mean, don't you feel like there's so many different coaches in the world that they just aren't called coaches?
Well, I actually believe that we're all coaches. We're all
Yeah.
coaches every day. You know, our kids, our parents, our friends and co-workers or whatever, right? Like we're constantly giving advice for free, you know, and in a way, right? So it's just when money enters the equation, that's when people choke and things change and people tense up or whatnot, you know, because of all this, you know, beliefs and all this stuff. Now, in your opinion, what makes a great coach?
I would say again, active listening makes a great coach, and the ability to learn
Mm-hmm.
as you teach,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to hold those two components simultaneously at the same time, but yet independently. Because we certainly don't want to transfer our learning onto our clients. They are there for the teachings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to become very, very good at holding space for learning and teaching, but keeping them very separate and knowing the difference between the two.
Mm-hmm. How do you go about creating a great coaching session, if there's such a thing?
I think that is such a thing. And we would hope to go for those numbers that, you know, at least 80% of the sessions with our clients they're feeling are great or exceptional coaching sessions. But if I look back, I would say the really, really amazing transformative sessions have always happened what we considered by accident. So you just have to listen, you know, it comes back to listening and hearing what your client is not saying, but asking for,
Interesting.
and listening to your gut.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's really important as coaches, is we have this intuition and not abandoning that
Mm-hmm.
intuition,
Mm-hmm.
and being willing. Because I work in healing and because I work with the body, there's a certain feeling I get when I just know something. And even if my client says, nope, that doesn't make sense, there's a feeling I get that's like, yep,
Yeah.
yes, it makes sense. And so what I'll do is I'll say it in a different way, or
Mm-hmm.
I'll write it down and say it the following week. And,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the wisdom of knowing the difference between, you know, is this truly what I'm saying, or do I want this to be that? So I think it's listening always. I do require that my clients use agendas. I don't know if you do that, but asking them 24 hours before showing up, what are you hoping to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gets them thinking, even though we may not do what their goal is for the session.
Mm-hmm.
It always gets them thinking about what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right when you said, oftentimes we have to give them what they need, and it's not what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how you know you're a good coach,
That's
is
right.
you can hold space for both.
That's right. That's right. Super profound. I love it. I love it. I love it. Somebody who's thinking about becoming a coach, you know, they're all nervous about it. They don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off or whatnot. What would you say to them? What are the first steps that they should take? What should they look into? You know, what do you think?
I think that you need to get a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to get a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the first step. And once you get a coach,
Mm-hmm.
I think you then need to start really deciding what you bring to the table. There are so many coaches out there.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you different?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And owning why you are different, not being afraid to say, like, I have found in my work that I can read the body.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, I didn't really own that. I didn't say that. I said that to clients, but I didn't say that to the general population.
Mm-hmm.
And it really it didn't help me, right? That wasn't in service to the people out there who actually need my help. So really knowing what your secret sauce is, and then finding a coach that helps you bring that out and polishes it so that your tribe can identify you.
Awesome. Kristal, can you share with us, 2 or 3 books that you would recommend anyone read?
I require every single client of mine to read Zen and the Art of Happiness by Chris Prentice. It's a requirement. And if nothing else, so that at least we understand where we are in the process. Mm-hmm. I don't require that my clients opt into that philosophy. So the philosophy is everything that happens to us is for the best possible outcome. Mm-hmm. Not the lesser of the evils, not the silver lining, but like the best possible outcome, which can be difficult in traumatic situations. Mm-hmm. So I think that book is amazing to give us an opportunity for consideration mm-hmm. of that. And then the other book that, Think and Grow Rich, mm-hmm. I think every coach would suggest it. I think I've read it 8 times. And every time I feel like I'm in a lull, right? That coasting time that I talked about earlier, mm-hmm. that's when I read it again. That is a staple. Mm-hmm. And the other book that I love, that I'm in my 3rd reading of it right now, is The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. Yeah. And, every single one of those, you don't have to buy into the philosophy, mm-hmm. but as coaches, we do have to hold space for the possibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and it helps opening up, people's minds, right? Again, you don't have to believe all this stuff, but this material is going to do something to you that then you
yes.
can, use, for your betterment, just like you said. Tell me the author name for the Zen and the Art of Happiness.
Chris Prentice, P as in Paul, Rentiss. Chris Prentice. It's just a little book, a little beautiful
awesome
book with powerful ideas. That was the book I read that really said, get your act together and go out into the world and help more people than just the people that you're whispering to.
Speaking of, what do you want your legacy to be?
My legacy, I want people to get that we have the opportunity to heal ourselves. And we are so, so powerful, and that there are so many ways that we are not using our body and mind connection to not only heal ourselves, but to heal our communities. Beautiful. And really I think it starts at home. I think for me, I would tell you, David, that my legacy is that my children get that. That's who I really want to get, because they will then influence that generation, and hopefully their children will influence the next.
Powerful. Funny that you mentioned that, because a lot of what I'm doing because of my son. And, when I write something, I always have in mind, like, this is for you. Yes, I use it for business or but this is for you. My videos are for you. My interviews are for you. My everything, because I want you to, develop this awareness from, a very early age. And we already started, but he's only 6, but at 6 years old, if you think about it, you develop pretty much all your programming by 7. So it's like, am I too late? Well, no, we started early, but you know what I mean? Like he's almost completely foreign, in that respect.
When you brought him up and when you said that, your whole energy changed. And I think that, that's really the crux of it, is really just trying to get people, our children, right, to open up their minds. I have a 21-year-old and I have an 18-year-old. And they, for many years, thought I was a lunatic and would, they still make fun of me. But they come to me. My son this morning, Mom, I tweaked my back playing golf. And, and he makes a joke and says, I don't want to know what that means. I don't want to know what belief systems, he says to me, I don't want to know what belief systems that is. I just want to know what poses. He's very specific. And so we dole out, right? Like him saying, I don't want to know belief systems, just poses, means I know that there's a correlation. And so just him understanding and not even discussing what that could mean, but he gets it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's, if we keep talking to our children, even if they act like they're not listening, they are.
Totally. Kristal, thank you so much for your time and everything. Can you please tell everyone where they can get in touch with you, or where to learn more about you and your services and your programs?
My website is revealthenheal.com. And I can be found on Instagram with Reveal Then Heal. And of course on Facebook, Kristal Fiorentino. So yeah, check it out. And I am always, open to suggestions or ideas or questions. And, for your community out there, I appreciate, having the conversation. I always learn something every time I have these conversations. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to chat with me, because I've already had a few takeaways of my own I've written down.
Beautiful. I appreciate you, your time and everything, and the work that you're doing. Just keep at it. And awesome. For everyone out there, guys, thank you for tuning in, and stay safe, and let's get out there and start changing lives one session at a time. See you later.